Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this regular session meeting of the Leawood Governing Body for Monday, February the 2nd, 2026. I'll call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Castor.
Here.
Councilmember Harrison.
Here.
Councilmember Guyed.
Here.
Councilmember Pepis.
Here.
Councilmember Larson.
Here.
Councilmember Rubin.
Here.
Councilmember Kane.
Here.
Councilmember Sunkel.
Absent.
Here on Zoom.
Alan,
Present
we're
on
glad. The rumors of your demise were exaggerating.
I'm surprised to see you here too.
Yeah,
And
both
Mayor
of us.
Mark Elkins is present and presiding.
Thank you, Stacy. I find that the entirety of the governing body is present either in person or by Zoom, and we have a quorum present so that we can proceed with the business of the evening. And with that, I would invite the scouts to come forward and please present the colors.
Please rise for the entrance of the colors and remove all hats. Color guard attention. Color guard advance. Color guard halt. Color guard post the colors. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color guard retreat. Color guard halt. Color guard dismissed.
All right, everyone may be seated. Thank you. And if the color guard could come back forward, please. All of you. Just right up to the microphone, right up to the... And hey, Stacy, can you fold the computer down just a little bit so at least we can see the top of his head? Excellent. If you could introduce yourselves and tell us what unit you're from and what rank you hold, we would be very grateful.
My name is Jack, and I am in Pack 3010, and I am 8 years old.
Jack, we're glad you're here. What rank do you hold? Are you a wolf?
Yes.
Great. You did a great job tonight. Thank you. And you did a great job leading the color guard tonight. So please introduce yourself as well.
My name is Anna Preston, and I am in Pack 3010, but I'm gonna be in a troop in 4 days.
Well, congratulations. Welcome to crossing the bridge and going on into scouting.
And I am 10 years old, and I am a AOL.
Great. An arrow of light. For those of you who don't know what AOL is, you're an arrow of light.
Thank you.
We're glad that you're here. Yes, sir.
My name is Boston Preston, and I'm 16 years old, and I am adventuring with Troop 396.
Great. Welcome.
My name is Clark Preston. I am in Troop 2396, and I am adventuring.
Excellent. You did an excellent job tonight. Thanks to you all. We really appreciate it. Pardon me. And with that, we'll look to the agenda this evening. Does staff have any revisions or amendments to the agenda as it was published?
No, we do not.
If not, is there a motion to approve the agenda as published?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison. That was Dr. Castor. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda as it was published, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, and the agenda is unanimously approved. The next item on our agenda this evening is the part of the agenda where we accept comments from the public regarding the city of Leawood and the business before the governing body. Tonight I have two different individuals who have signed in. I'll start with Ms. Deb Maywald. Ms. Maywald, as you come forward, I'll remind everyone that we have 4 minutes allocated for each speaker. The clock will be started when you start to speak, and I'm not sure if it buzzes or it doesn't buzz. We're kind of having some mechanical difficulties here, but at some point in time that light will begin to blink, and that'll be your clue to come to a conclusion. So Ms. Maywald, if you could introduce yourself once again and your address. We're interested in what you have to say this evening.
I'm Deb Maywald, 14714 Sherwood. As a taxpayer, I have a professional expectation of our paid contractors. The management company at Iron Horse Golf Club is out of compliance and not providing full disclosure, transparency, nor professional advice in good faith. According to the contract, the management company is responsible for our annual Kansas Secretary of State business entity filings, and these are not in compliance and have not been in compliance. IRS Publication 598 requires that tax-exempt entities are responsible for reporting any unrelated business income, or UBI, in excess of $1,000 each fiscal year. The accurate reporting of UBI requires generally accepted accounting principles or GAAP compliant with audited income statements and balance sheets each fiscal year to determine accuracy in reporting on tax returns. The Iron Horse financial reports provided by the company, the management company, do not reflect UBI, or they do reflect UBI profits exceeding this threshold, and tax liability should be assessed even though those financial reports are not in compliance with GAAP and they are not audited. UBI is reported on a 990T tax return, and the returns are required to be publicly disclosed. State of Kansas also has UBI tax reporting requirements assessed with Form K-120. The management company at Iron Horse should be providing their knowledge of these tax filings and obligations to our city leadership. If the city annual audit is still conducted by RSM, they would be an absolute professional resource for the specifics in this matter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Maywald. We appreciate your comments. Next I have signed in this evening is Ms. Wandra Miner. Wandra, welcome again. If you could come forward and introduce yourself and maybe your colleagues, we're interested in what you have to say.
We're going to share 4 minutes if
That's
okay.
quite all right.
Okay. I will let our
If you could
representative-
introduce yourself and your address, we would be grateful.
Okay.
To our Honorable Mayor of Leawood and to the City Council, we are just privileged to be here today from the Johnson County NAACP. And I'd like to, my name is Johnny Terry Fleming. I'm a resident of Leawood over 40 years now, built a home in Leawood Country Manor. So I'm more than proud to be here before the city because I've been here a long time and have witnessed the progress that has been made in our city. So I'm really proud to be here today, and I'd like to also recognize the other members of the Johnson County NAACP. You've already met Ms. Wonder, and we have other members here and who also some are members of, a couple of members of also Leawood. So we would just like to say thank you. We would like to say thank you for honoring Dr. Martin Luther King. And as you know, Black History Month is coming as well. And I'd just like to thank you for the dedication of the bridge in honor of Dr. King. And when I read the proclamation, I mean, just to listen to what you had to say about what he stood for, civil rights and equality, and all of us working together in collaboration. And I think we do that well in Leawood. So I'm just pleased to be here because my children also, of course, went to school in Blue Valley, and we never had any issues in terms of working together in this particular community. But I know there are always exceptions, but I can only speak for what I've observed. So we just want to thank you for dedicating the bridge in honor of Dr. King. And it says he was a true bridge builder and visionary leader committed to achieving social justice through nonviolent means. And we want to thank you for that recognition. And as I said, also this month is Black History Month. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Ms. Minor.
So 4 minutes up?
No, not quite yet.
Personally, would just like to say, on behalf of the Johnson County NAACP, my name is Wanda Minor, and I'm an executive member and membership chair. But since we had this wonderful meeting with Mayor Elkins and Stacy Stromberg and Diana Stoddard, we have really been blessed to have a number of city councils to join to support us in the community. And that's what we're trying to do every month at different locations to attend city council meetings. We're encouraging our members to go to the city council meetings, get involved, and speak up, just share whatever you have. And we do have that opportunity. I'd just like to list, if it's okay, real quick, the ones that have really joined us for 2025. City of DeSoto, City of Marion Police Department, Fairway Police Department, Leawood, Lenexa, Overland Park, Prairie Village, and Roland Park, and Shawnee is pending. So we are really trying to be visible, and as a member, anytime you have any questions, you can come to our office. Our books, we have no hidden agenda. If you're a member, you're welcome to see our records. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Minor. We appreciate your work. Are there any other citizens in the audience who wish to be heard this evening? If not, we'll move on to proclamation, which the proclamation in honor of Martin Luther King was presented, I think, at our last meeting. I have no presentations or recognitions this evening. I do have some special business. And Ms. Stoddard, if I understand correctly, you wish to be heard on this matter.
Yes, I do, Mayor. Thank you very much. This item is considering approval of my recommendation of appointment of Jeremy Wilmoth as the Director of Finance, and it's my pleasure to present that recommendation to you this evening. His appointment, if approved this evening, would be effective March the 2nd of this year. Jeremy has 20 years of public sector finance experience. He is currently serving as the Chief Financial Officer for the Mid-Continent Public Library System, the largest library district in Missouri. Jeremy previously served as the Director of Finance for the cities of Lawrence, Kansas, and Raytown, Missouri, and he has also served as a county administrator and a city manager. He holds a Bachelor of Public Administration and a Master of Public Affairs from Park University, and is an accredited credentialed manager with the International City County Management Association and a certified public funds investor. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Stoddard. Questions for Ms. Stoddard this evening? Ms. Stoddard, the governing body seems to have a lot of confidence in you. If there are no questions or discussion, is there a motion relative to Ms. Stoddard's recommendation?
Motion to approve our city administrator's recommendation for financial director.
Thank you, Ms. Larson. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Pepis. Discussion of the motion. If not, all those in favor of accepting and approving the recommendation of the city administrator for the appointment of Jeremy Wilmoth to become the Director of Finance effective March 2, 2026, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, and Ms. Stoddard's recommendation is unanimously approved. We look forward to meeting Mr. Wilmoth probably at the March 2nd, 2026 meeting. Great way for his first day of work is to be trial by fire in front of the governing body. So we'll look forward to that. We come now to the consent agenda this evening. The consent agenda is a series of items for which the governing body can determine that they're routine enough to be enacted upon a single motion. Are there any items that I listed on the consent agenda that you all would like to withdraw for additional discussion? Yes, Ms. Rubin.
E, please.
E is an echo.
Yes.
Ms. Larson?
F is in Frank, and G is in Gary.
I thought you'd say golf. I thought you'd say golf. Any other items to be withdrawn from the consent agenda for additional discussion? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exceptions of items E, F, and G?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Rubin. Is there a second?
Second.
That was Ms. Guyed. Thank you. Any discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda with the exception of items E, F, and G, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, and the consent agenda with the exceptions of E, F, and G is unanimously approved and adopted. Item E is the Police Department 2025 Annual Report, and Ms. Rubin, I believe that was you.
Yes, I just wanted to commend Chief Robbins on the wonderful job that his department does in keeping us safe and, most importantly, serving the community. I was so impressed in the annual report with the amount of community service that our police department engages in every single day. And I think that's one of the most important aspects of policing is developing the trust of the community. And I know that you've done that, and I just wanted to thank you. And I'm very proud to live in Leawood. I'm proud to know that we have an exceptionally professional police force, and it just makes me proud to read that report and to live in Leawood. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rubin. Other comments or questions for Chief Robbins with respect to the annual report? If not, is there a motion? And that motion would be to approve? Okay, thank you. Ms. Harrison, thank you, Ms. Larson. Any discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor of approving and accepting the Police Department's 2025 annual report, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, and the annual report is unanimously approved and accepted. Item F is the Fire Department's 2025 annual report, and Ms. Larson, I believe you had an interest there.
Yes. Hello, Chief. I just wanted, when reading your report, I just wanted to comment and make sure that you knew that we did read and appreciate your comments on staffing, that you've had to reduce public events that the fire department has been hosting, and that staffing levels have remained stagnant for many years. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that that did not go unnoticed, if I said that correctly. And then I look forward to discussing that at a future date when we're looking at our budget and making adjustments. And then I also wanted to I noticed also on the grid for incident types that grid section 186 accounted for 22% of calls with 605 EMS calls, and that's a big number. And do we expect that to remain level or increase, or that's what's driving the perhaps need for a fourth fire station in this area?
Colin Fitzgerald, Fire Chief. Exactly. So we've been looking at the grid, 1 square mile grids now for several years because it's a good way to break it down. But that, of course, we are in grid 186 right now, and there's 2 care facilities really close that help account for a lot of that. But this grid has been very busy for years now, and would be part of the new District 4 when it's built. And we anticipate that if that station opened today, it would absorb approximately 40% of the entire city call volume the first day it was open. And also, not only is this the busiest grid, but it's also the furthest travel time from any existing station. So as the call volume goes up, our times progressively go up. We've been tracking that, but definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for your report. It was very thorough, and I just wanted to make sure that you knew we were paying attention. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Thanks.
Other questions for Chief?
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Ms. Larson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison. Any discussion? All those in favor of adopting and accepting the Fire Department's 2025 annual report, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, and the Fire Department's 2025 annual report is unanimously accepted. Thank you, Chief. We appreciate the work the department does. That brings us to item G, which is the staff report on projects by Chris Claxton, the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Arts. Ms. Larson.
Thank you. Hi, Chris. I just had a couple of questions under the pickleball discussion. I thought that was an interesting idea for funding 96th and Lee and maybe making adjustments in the park and recreation budget. And I was just interested in the conversation that the committee had regarding that topic.
So those minutes are still being transcribed, and they should be ready by the end of this week. So we'll need to get those out for the next meeting of the park board, which is next Thursday. So I didn't listen to the tape. I know there was quite a bit of conversation about the options, what they could do, but I don't have it right now. I'm happy to get that out as soon as I get it transcribed by our administrative assistant.
We can certainly wait. Maybe Chairwoman Kane might have some comments.
I do. This is been an ongoing conversation, and Chris and her team do a good job of having the Parks and Rec Department try to prioritize projects. And so sometimes things sneak in where there's been on occasion where things have snuck in. But it's a very thoughtful process, and we review it often. So we've been talking about 96 and Lee forever and a day, right? And now we're finally, hopefully coming to some kind of resolution. Yet it was a big part of the conversation prior to the word pickleball coming up that there is no funding for it at all. There's nothing in the funds immediately anyway, whereas there was money. And then as we were discussing, and you can see also in Chris's report, the concept of the bathrooms at the
Ironwoods?
Yeah, no, that one. The cabins, being raised.
Right. Yeah. Ironwood.
And then no money or no plans to replace it in the immediate, or no ability to replace it. So it was part of the conversation about, again, how do we fiscally, to the point of the resident earlier, how do we fiscally use our funds and what should we prioritize? So that was kind of a general discussion. I think it was Dr. Castor that said it more than once, right, Doctor? Said the very same thing. And so, it's something to look at, right? And now we've got the benefit district, and so things have changed somewhat, and 96 and Lee is not in the benefit district, whereas the pickleball courts would be. So again, we have to weigh these things, but it's a really good committee full of really good, hardworking folks, and that was part of the general discussion.
Yeah, and I totally trust the committee's recommendation. I was just kind of curious as to the conversation. So.
Yeah, it was a very long one. We went really long that night because there's a lot of important things coming up. But yeah, that was the gist of it.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. And then, Chris, I had one other question on the Iron Horse Range project. I noticed that the Mid-America Golf and Landscape Company had some delays due to a health issue with one of their employees. And do we think that those delays are going to impact whether the range is ready to open at the beginning of golf season? Are we to that point yet?
I don't believe so. So okay. I think they're still on schedule, and they'll have to, once they get to the point where all those irrigation lines are in, which is happening very soon, then we're going to have to wait, pardon me, to do all the sod work.
Okay,
So
great.
at this point, I do not believe that it will hinder us getting the range back open by golf season.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Motion to approve.
Thank you. Pardon me. Thank you, Ms. Larson. Is there a second?
Second, but I
Thank
do
you,
have
Ms.
one
Gain.
question as
Yes.
long as I have Chris here. I was reading with interest the Elon Park Bank Stabilization Project, and I don't recall one way or the other. Are there those funds available to, if they're going in and doing all this testing, no sense in doing the testing and then having, or in my mind, a delayed, project start or completion. So do you anticipate that happening in 2026, or when do you anticipate that happening?
No, I think we anticipate putting it, once we get the information back on the preliminary engineering study, the PES, then we'll know what it's going to take to make the correction there. Then we would probably submit a decision package for 2027.
2027, and those, all that reporting done, that $37,000 or almost $38,000 worth of studies will not have, I mean, there's erosion, so that we're not going to have to do that again a year farther, or in a year.
We should not have to do that. I think that the fix that they're looking at is going to be significantly adequate to fix that creek bank erosion. It's just on the north side of the creek where
Right.
it makes that sharp bend. So we've had other areas in the creeks where we've done similar work, and they've held for 20 plus years without having to be fixed. So I don't anticipate having to redo the PES. No.
Okay, great. And then to piggyback on my earlier comment, with this council and our strategic planning, taking care of what we have before we start doing something else is a big thread of our initiative. So this of course falls into that, but so does if we had to raise the potties over at those cabins and then we don't have them. You know what I mean? What should be the priority? Sometimes, if your roof is leaking, all of a sudden you have to take care of the roof, kind of thing, instead of getting the new couch, as my analogy has been many times. So you want the new couch, but you might not get the new couch right away, right? So thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Ms. Kane? I'm sorry, not for Ms. Kane, for Ms. Claxton.
Or me.
Or if you have questions for the chairman, that would be fine too. If not, thank you, Ms. Claxton. And I think we have a motion and a second pending on accepting Ms. Claxton's staff report on projects for Parks, Recreation, and Arts. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor of accepting the staff report, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, and the staff report from the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Arts is unanimously accepted. That brings us to the mayor's report. As some of you have noted, the mayor did not anticipate being here this evening and did not anticipate a report. He has spent the better part of the time since we last met traveling all around the world, it seems like. But the city is in great shape. I monitored closely from where I was at the way the Public Works dealt with the snow emergencies and the cold emergencies, and again, all went well, and thanks to Public Works for their work on that. We come now to count. Well, let me ask: are there questions for me? No, I don't have any trip photos for folks because the trip turned out to be mostly at the inside of an airplane. But if there are no other questions, we'll move to council member reports. I believe that Mr. Sunkel had a report.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I just have a very brief report about the Elon Sister City Committee. They've been hard at work finalizing the preparations for the Lunar New Year celebration. This year we are having it on, it's going to be the Year of the Horse, and it's going to be on February 20th at 6 p.m. at 154 at Iron Horse. And the menu is always terrific. There will be traditional entertainment and, of course, cocktails, and the tickets are available at the Leawood website. You can just search for Lunar New Year celebration.
Questions?
That's it.
Questions for Mr. Sunkel? If not, I would only add that in today's mail, I received a very nice greeting card from the mayor of Elon, congratulating us and wishing us on a happy new year in the Asian calendar, in the Chinese calendar, and we will be preparing a short video, as we have in the past, to wish the people of Elon the best, as well as they go into the Year of the Horse. Ms. Kane, I believe that you have a report.
Yes, in the mayor's stead, I was able to attend, or asked to attend, a meeting. It was January 26th. It was maximizing Johnson County's role in regional sports tourism and public-private collaboration. I got to go with Diane Stoddard, and we ended up sitting at this really great table because it had the head of Johnson County Parks and Rec there, and another one from anyway, we had a very good table to discuss this. But the concept here is what are our near-term and our long-term opportunities, not only to maximize the economic and community impact of the World Cup, of course, that's on top of everybody's mind, but what can the county do to increase sports tourism strategy moving forward? I'm just born a geek and still a geek. I thought it was fascinating. $52 billion industry. The youth and amateur sports arena is a $52 billion industry. What the Johnson County already does as far as revenue coming in this arena saves each citizen from having to pay an additional $800 for tourism because of the money already coming in. And then they were talking about, I had to do a roundtable, and you know how I love these guys, right? What are our weaknesses? What are our opportunities? What are our threats? And then the whole group shared it out. So it was really interesting conversation. They want to set up a subcommittee, so I don't know if anybody really floats anybody's boat, but they're looking to fill out a subcommittee. And then there's a House Bill 2346 that has to do, Diane, maybe you can help me there, but there's a House bill coming forward that may be, in the end, help cities do this type of thing, the public-private partnership. An example they brought that kept coming up that night was Blue Hawk. And Blue Hawk is a public public-private partner. Say that 3 times really fast. And a successful one. So as we want to do soccer, as we want to do baseball, as we want to do, you fill in the blank, we need, apparently, to get the big dollars and to get the big tournaments, we have to have more facilities. So I did with our efforts with World Cup, I have more than one soccer team going, why doesn't Leawood put an indoor soccer facility at Leawood Park? So it is something that I'm hearing, and there is a need out there, and they just don't have enough room. So it's definitely on a lot of people's minds, especially right now, because Kansas City is getting to be all that with sports, right? So, and on the horizon, Johnson County is being very smart and proactive about collaborating together. So it was a really interesting meeting. I was glad I got to attend, and you would have been great to have on that committee as well, of course. But it was nice to just different hat that day.
Thank you, Ms. Kane. Other questions for Ms. Kane about this event? If not, thank you, Ms. Kane, and again, thank you for attending in my stead. Ms. Larson, it looks like you have a comment.
We had an impromptu Gezer Sister City Committee meeting today. Rabbi Steve Bernstein from the Gezer region was visiting. Rabbi Bernstein has Leawood roots, but he has a kind of a dual residency, I believe. Council member Rubin was here for the meeting as well, and he just gave us some color, and his comments were very moving about how the residents of Gezer have coped with the ongoing conflict, what it's like for them, their daily routines, how it's affected children. It was very moving, and I had to leave the meeting early, but we were discussing, and Stephen Powell was there as well. We were discussing how the Gezer Sister Committee can be of assistance to the citizens of Gezer. And, we, simple things that we take for granted, like not having missiles flying overhead, are something that they deal with on a daily basis, and watching the Iron Dome in action. So it was very moving and very time well spent. Rachel, do you have anything to add to the?
Just that we're looking to host some kids from Israel to come to this area for the Maccabi Games, and that Leawood may have an opportunity to participate in hosting some kind of an event for the teenagers who are coming.
And I would just add that we got word shortly before I left, I think it was, that we are going to be able to host the mayor and the region administrator for Gezer during the Maccabi Games as well. So we're looking forward to plans that the committee is going to put together with respect to hosting my good friend, the mayor of the Gezer region there.
And Rabbi Bernstein was very complimentary of Mayor Rotem Yadlin and her leadership, both through the COVID era and then after October the 7th. So she was very complimentary. And so we're lucky to have such excellent leadership on both sides of the equation.
Absolutely. Any other questions then for the Gezer Committee? Other reports from any of the council members then, beyond this? If not, that brings us to the city administrator's report, and it appears, Ms. Starr, that you have an item to be heard on.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Just one item. This is a follow-up from the discussion in January with your land bank meeting. There were some questions about what other cities do with their land banks. So our highly capable management intern, Jill Parsons, put together a memo for you that's in there. So hopefully you can have an opportunity to peruse that. But if you have any questions, Jill is here this evening and can answer those. And that's all I have for you this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Starr, and thank you, Jill, for the work that you did. We appreciate that. Anyone have any questions for Jill over her land bank report? Great.
No questions, but it was very well done.
Thank you, Jill. We appreciate the work that you did there. We now move to special business this evening, which is the business to approve. I'm sorry. I got myself out of sync here. We move now to committee recommendations, and we have a number of those from the Public Works Committee this evening. And I believe that Mr. Scoville is here to present the various proposals for our consideration this evening. Mr. Scoville, welcome. You might introduce yourself for benefit of the record, and I'm sure that Ms. Kane will be able to assist as we work our way through these items. The first item to be considered is Public Works Committee recommendation to install a crosswalk with rectangular rapid flashing beacons at 81st Street and Lee Boulevard. Mr. Scoville.
Thank you, Brian Scoville, Assistant Director of Public Works. And I think, Julie, you wanted to cue this up?
I will cue this up, yes. Public Works has been busy. We've had double meetings, 2 a month lately, and we're going to be busy going forward. So thank you to my fellow council people on that committee. So on January 7th, rather, we had 2 motions that you have in your packet today. We received a request from a resident at 81st and Lee Boulevard to put in a marked crosswalk. So we had a robust conversation. Brian's always there. And between he and David Lay, they do such an excellent job. Not only comprehensive information, but just such a good job with all of our residents. As you well know, we've had some trouble lately, and safety is really top of mind. We've had a lot of people in our meetings and a lot of concerned folks. So A+ to both Brian and David in all their efforts that they do, not only, like I said, with the nuts and bolts of these decisions, but the handling of our residents, which is equally important, is it not? So they did, and Brian will tell you this, they did all the tests, and the location met the minimum pedestrian threshold. They were talking about, should it be on the south side, should it be, where exactly? So I'll let Brian fill you in on that. But it was approved by, or recommended by the Public Works Committee to recommend going forward per our discussion. Brian, anything to add there?
Oh, sure. Thank you so much. So, yeah, we received the request for a evaluation for a crosswalk, and it was kind of later in the year, and you may know when we evaluate crosswalks, we have to keep weather in mind, because one of the first things we do is evaluate for current pedestrian activity, and if there isn't pedestrian activity, it really decreases the chances of meeting our policy requirements. So weather is important in that people are out and about and busy. So we were able to get a count done, and this location just barely met the requirements. But there were other factors that helped contribute to our recommendation for supporting a crosswalk here, including the lack of sidewalks along the east side of Lee Boulevard, the lack of sidewalks along 81st Street, the connectivity between the east side and west side of Lee Boulevard in this area. It's roughly 1,000 feet from 81st north to Somerset, where you might be able to cross at the signal, and likewise roughly another 1,000 feet to the south to cross at 83rd. So it's a fair distance between those opportunities to cross. So staff did recommend approval or recommend to move forward with analyzing a crosswalk here and approval for one. The residents were notified. 2 residents attended our meeting, and the recommendation is for the south side of this intersection. The resident on the southeast corner was in attendance and did ask that we work with him on the design and that he might have some input on how we move forward with that. We're still working on actual design, and until we have that, we won't know the exact cost, but right now we're estimating $55,000 to $65,000, and once we have the cost, we will be able to come back to the City Council, the governing body, for approval of hopefully approval of a construction contract with the hard cost.
Thank you, Mr. Scoville. Questions for Mr. Scoville? Ms. Guyette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I meant to go back and look at what days of the week were October 14th through October 16th. I'm curious if you know what days of the week they were monitored.
I don't recall, but we are totally open to counting on weekends, if that helps we are looking for when people are crossing, and we aren't going to only count on Mondays. And so the policy does kind of communicate that the idea is to look for the most likely times people will cross. It also provides guidance on what time of day you count and what kind of weather you should look for when you set up your counters. If you don't meet the count the first day, we go back and we count a second day. If you still don't meet it, we count a third day.
Got it. Okay.
Well, and interestingly enough, High Drive, which is just half a block away from this intersection, I lived on there. That was the very first block in Leawood. That very first block that Crow Brothers built homes in Leawood. And my first little house was right on their tiny little red brick house, just literally five houses up from this very intersection. And it's a dead end. They closed it off. As it intersects to Somerset. It used to be open, but a long time ago, 25 years ago, they closed that off. So if you were like me with 2 little babies, you went out there with the stroller to cross the street. So I know this intersection very well, so I was glad to see it happen. So with that, if there's nothing else, I'll make a motion to approve the installation of the smart crosswalk.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Kane. Thank you, Ms. Guyette. I have just a couple of questions before we move to vote. One, I guess, and my apologies for probably not reading the packet as close as I should, since we don't have a cost and we're still in the process of design, exactly what is it you're asking us to approve tonight, Mr. Scoville?
So the policy requires the request to be studied and evaluated. It goes before the committee for a recommendation to council to move forward with this as an approved location. It doesn't mean that it's currently budgeted. It will be up to the governing body to determine if and when something will actually be installed, but it is approved in accordance with the policy.
So we're approving a location. We're not approving any action by the city or by the Public Works Department of any sort at this point in time beyond what you already have underway.
Correct. We would see this action as support for staff to continue forward with our design and identify the costs so that we are ready when it comes time for budgeting.
So merely a location.
Yes, sir.
And then the other more substantive question I have is given all the concern that we've had and the valid concerns that have been laid, I drive that street at least once a day as mayor just to get a better idea and understanding of what's going on that street. And I've noticed that, I've noticed a couple things. One, these rapid repeating lights. Now, I guess, I don't know if it's good news or bad news, but the news is as I drive by, it's very rarely, and again, I'm only going by once or twice a day, so it's not a statistically significant sample, but it's only very rarely that I see those lights flashing. And when I first see them flashing and glance at them, it's not immediately obvious to me what it is that I'm supposed to do as a driver with those things flashing. Again, common sense would dictate they must be flashing for a reason, but they're flashing yellow and not red. So I guess, has the Public Works team considered a way of educating the public more on just what those yellow lights mean? Again, as school children, we were always taught that when the yellow light comes on, you slow up and you start paying attention. My indication is that I've understood through this whole process we've gone through this fall that we made something entirely different when the yellow lights start blinking on these RRD items.
You raise a great point, and that additional education, I think, would be well worth an endeavor, a worthy endeavor, and Public Works would be happy to work with our communications director to put together some communication information and get that out.
And it has raised the question in my mind about whether it's some sort of additional signage, stop for flashing red lights or whatever, kind of like when you get to a train crossing. I don't know. I'm not an expert in this area. You guys are the trained professional engineers, but as you work through this design, I guess I would ask that you consider that and whether there is some way to better inform the public of what our expectation as a city is when they see those lights blinking. Second item that I've noticed, and they do jump out at you, is in the existing crosswalks, you've got, I don't know what to call them other than posts in the middle of the street that are bright green. Hopefully over time they won't weather too badly. They jump out and grab your attention that they're there. Although it has raised questions for me about, when I was gone, what happened during the snowstorm. Do the snowplows stop and pull up those things and then go over them and replace them? Or how does the apparent conflict between these posts in the middle of the street and snow removal work?
So they have a bracket that's mounted to the ground that allows us to remove the post, and the plows can go right over them. So we should be able to reinstall those as weather permits. We go out, pull them up, hopefully a day or so before the storm, and then we can reinstall those. And they're not at every location. We'd love to put them at every location, but they're just not feasible due to it comes down to the truck turning movements and especially emergency operations. So we are looking at where we can place those to help increase visibility, but not all locations will lend themselves towards the additional extra signing.
Do they create any sort of an issue for emergency vehicles? I mean, Lee doesn't strike me as a terribly wide street to begin with, and one of our big fire trucks hauling down along Lee Boulevard got my attention too, wondering if it was an issue for them.
So if they were hit by a vehicle, the sign would pop back up. It is crash worthy. We don't want it to be hit often, but it is designed that it can withstand repeated impacts and being driven over repeatedly. But in a snow event, it's a little different. You have a plow and you're scraping, so we want to remove them from the road in a storm. We do evaluate the turning movements of the trucks, and we put a template down and make sure that the emergency vehicles can clear the turn so that it's not repeatedly hit. But we, like I said, we're evaluating each location on its own, and we're looking to install those everywhere we can.
Unfair question tonight, but do you happen to know ballpark off the top of your head how many of those we have installed right now? I mean, is it
5? I'm being told 5.
So it's a handful. That's fair enough. Again, they do an excellent job of grabbing your attention. Maybe it's just because they're new, and they're bright yellow, green, or whatnot. So I think they are a big enhancement there. But I was concerned especially about snowplows and how that all works. So thank you for that explanation. Again, apologies for the additional questions. Other questions for Mr. Scoville? Well, if not, I believe we have a motion. Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Castor.
That's okay. I was just going to kind of echo what you said too, and I mentioned at a council meeting a couple months back, I had a resident who noted that when somebody had pushed the yellow flashing lights, she watched like 6 or 8 cars just drive right by while the person was waiting to cross the street. And so I would echo what the mayor said. If there's some sign that says stop for flashing, I know we can't make them red lights because is against the rules, but if we could somehow figure out some kind of a signage to tell motorists to stop, I think that would be great and increase the safety, which is why we're doing that in the beginning. So.
Right. Yeah. In this case, the yellow flashing lights are to bring attention to the crosswalk. They're not necessarily directing drivers to make a maneuver or change their plan other than bringing attention to the crosswalk. The laws are already established that they're required to cross when a pedestrian is in the crosswalk. Adding the lights doesn't change that. And so if a pedestrian is not in the crosswalk, then cars may continue to just drive right on by. But, as they look for gaps in the flashing lights, hopefully cars are courteous and do slow down. And as those gaps become available, people do cross. But the idea is to bring attention, and we're all paying attention to those crossing locations to help improve safety. But again, pedestrians should not be entering the road unless there's a safe gap and they're comfortable with that gap to cross the road. So our hope is that between the flashing lights, the sign that is associated with the flashing lights, the advanced warning sign before they approach the area, the crosswalk, and in several locations, the new sign we're adding in the road. We've got this crosswalk lit up like as much as we can. And so we're doing everything in the book we can find. We're throwing at it. So
I appreciate it.
Hopefully it's improving safety. We'd like to see how they perform.
And we appreciate that. It does create a little bit of a Hobson's choice for the pedestrian about, yes, the car is supposed to yield to the pedestrian when they step in the crosswalk, but it's a 4,000-pound car, and it's a 185-pound person, or maybe even a young person less than 100 pounds. And I'm not sure that there's enough courage in the book to test out that theory. So it is a challenge. And again, no criticism of Public Works intended at all. You guys have done a great job of adding flashing lights and the RRDs and now the psychedelic yellow posts in the middle of the street. So you're doing what you can. But again, it's partly it's behavior, and part of it's, again, as I said, way back when we saw a yellow light, it meant just to kind of slow up, and in some people's minds it meant to go faster. Hopefully that's not the case, but we appreciate what you're doing. But as I said, we have a motion and a second pending. Any other questions or discussions for Mr. Scoville? Ms. Harrison.
Thank you. In listening to this, Brian, now all of a sudden, devil's advocate here. Do I understand correctly that we have these crosswalks? We have a pedestrian walking their dog, walking their stroller, whatever. They come to this crosswalk, they push a button, the flashing yellow goes. They're still supposed to wait for a gap. But do they possibly think in the back of their minds, I've pushed a button, I have a crosswalk, it's me, it's my turn, they have to stop? That's what I'm beginning to wonder, if that the pedestrian isn't thinking, I'm in the safety zone, I'm where I'm supposed to be, they're going to stop when these things start flashing, and in fact, that's not the law.
Yeah, and there is actually a little sign on the button when you
Okay.
press the button that says, I forget the exact language, but it basically cautions the pedestrian
Okay.
from entering the road. It's
Yeah.
like, be careful, cars may not stop just because it's flashing.
Right.
I could get that language. In fact, I would look forward to working with Beth and Sam. I've actually got some materials that I think we could get out pretty quickly.
Okay, there are new crosswalks on my daily route to work on on Row near 137th that weren't there 5 years ago. And it's 4 lanes of traffic. And I think to myself, you're walking right across the street, there's cars coming. Like, I think people think they have a cloak of protection because they're in the big fancy white stripes. And I mean, I know that if they're halfway across, I'm supposed to stop. But if they're just going, they're wrong, you know. I think there's a mentality that the pedestrians have the right of way, not when you step in front of an SUV, you don't, you know, kind of a thing. So I'm a little bit nervous all of a sudden that people think the wrong thing about these flashing beacons. But education and signage might be the key. Maybe bigger signage. Maybe we add that for the first 6 months that they're up there or something. I don't know. Even temporary signage. But anyway, all right. Well, thank you for the discussion.
Brian, you're the design professional, so hopefully you'll take a lot of this and can figure out the best way for us to deal with it. Any other questions for Mr. Scoville? If not, all those in favor of approving the recommendation of the Public Works Committee, which is to establish a location of a crosswalk and rectangular rapid flashing beacons at 81st Street and Lee Boulevard. And note that I avoided the word install because I don't think we're authorizing the installation yet. Please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, and the Public Works Committee recommendation is unanimously approved. Second item on this part of our agenda is the Public Works Committee recommendation, which is to install rectangular rapid flashing beacons at the existing crosswalk near 14600 Mission Road. Ms. Kane, do you wish to start with this one?
I will. So this was same day, second action that day. Blue Valley Schools have recently stopped providing buses for the middle school and the high school students that live within 2 miles of schools. So that's a recent change. Therefore, we've seen an increase in pedestrian traffic along, routes around these areas. And this particular intersection, if you're familiar with it, it's right before where you reach Ironwoods Park, and the sidewalk on the east side stops, and then everybody to continue on a sidewalk has to cross to the west and then continue on the sidewalk. So this is a crosswalk that's been there for a long time, but what was triggering this was the increased traffic because of the change in the bus route. So we too approved the recommendation from staff to put in this rectangular rapid flashing beacon at that intersection because of this these factors that have changed recently.
That's correct. As you mentioned, a little different here in that we have an established crosswalk. So we're not approving the location of a crosswalk tonight. We're approving the our committee's recommendation to enhance this location, but it does not include the installation. The previous location, we really don't have the funds necessarily identified specifically in the budget. It might be able to be absorbed by other items. But with respect to this location, we actually have the equipment on order. That we ordered some equipment at the end of last year, knowing we had several of these locations coming up, not just here, but elsewhere in the city. We've got 7 different pedestrian crossing request locations that are currently queued up. So we'll be back with more of these. But knowing we have several of these coming up, we've ordered 2 sets of these flashing beacons, and they should be delivered soon. So this is a location where we could go ahead and proceed with installation with our existing equipment that we have already budgeted and invoiced and procured. So I would look forward to any questions and hopefully the support to move forward with this location.
So this indeed is a request for approval of installation, it sounds like.
So I guess so. It's kind of what's the appropriate way to take these forward, and this is where a little bit of my inexperience might be showing through here. But the last location was different in that we don't have specific equipment already on hand. It's $65,000 worth of work with concrete and ramps, and this location has all that. So we're just installing some poles with solar panels, so we don't have to run power. We're not installing meters, and the equipment's already on hand. So I suppose we are asking for installation.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Scoville? Ms. Guyette.
So versus the first one, which I think you had an estimated 55 to 65,000 because you didn't already have the equipment. This one is estimating to only cost 15,000 because you already have most of everything you need.
Right.
To
I think we have
install this.
11,000 of it already procured. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Guyette. Ms. Kane?
You ready for a motion?
Sure.
Okay. So I move that we approve the Public Works Committee recommendation to install the rectangular rapid flashing beacon at the intersection of 146 and Mission Road.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Larson. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of approving the Public Works Committee recommendation regarding an RRFB at the existing crosswalk near 14600 Mission Road, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, and the Public Works Committee recommendation is unanimously approved. We come now to Public Works Committee recommendation, Safe Streets and Roads for All. Many of us know it as SS4A, consultant selection. Is this Ms. Kane or Mr. Scoville?
Both. I'll start, and then Brian can take it away. So this was 2 weeks later. We met. This was an interesting meeting because it was the first time we had the Bike Walk Committee, actually just 2 members of the Bike Walk Committee with us in the Public Works. And the item before us was to rank the submittals that we had received to develop an action plan for Leawood Safe Streets and Roads for All, SS4A as it's known. So we received 5 proposals. Staff does not score. This is frustrating to us, but they don't. That's the procedure, and we got a rank order scoring method, and we all spent hours, right, Rachel? This takes a long time and a lot of deliberation and a lot of back and forth. But the good news is we had a clear winner today, this day. Not always do we get a clear winner, but interestingly enough, second, third, and fourth were within just 2 points, 3 points. Crazy close. But the good news is this one had a clear winner. That made us feel better and more confident with our decision. And so, yes, that was an interesting collaboration. Very good, I thought, to have Bike Walks, not the whole committee there, but part of it participating. Brian, anything to add?
I would just note that we had a great turnout from these consultants. They put a lot of time and effort into these proposals, and I hear that these proposals can cost them $3,000 to $5,000 on the low end and upwards of $10,000 for more complicated proposals. So when they put together these packages, they really are going after work, and they were all very good, and every one of those consultants was qualified, fundamentally qualified, but they stood out in different ways, and the selection committee did a great job. They came up, and there was a clear winner, and staff fully supports, and it's looking forward to working with the selection committee's recommendation.
What's interesting that day, I've seen it happen before, but that they have what they call a rank order scoring method that kind of makes it, it kind of closes a delta, if you will, and makes it, because what I view as one way, somebody else, I might say, oh, that's worth 100 points, but somebody's same thing, they think the same way, but they give it 50 points. So because they use the rank order scoring method, it kind of mitigates that. So it's and that works. It really is handy to have that level of not only, like I said, so scoring, but then how we interpret the scores. That really helps in the end, I believe. So That's all I have on that one. So it'll be interesting to see.
Dr. Kester.
Yeah, I was wondering, in the scope of this consultant work, will they also be just doing a broader review of e-bikes and scooters? Will that be part of it? I know some municipalities, are kind of looking at a minimum age for drivers of scooters, kind of where the scooters can be, bike paths, streets, trails, and even like speed limits, depending on your age for those. I wasn't sure if that was part of the scope or not.
Great question. They have a certain minimum requirements they have to meet for the SS4A grant and Vision Zero plans, the safety action plan. And so if there's funds available beyond that, they're able to do more. And in this case, we asked for additional funds to do more, including policy updates. A lot of agencies developed plans, these safety plans, that didn't include policy updates, but through some guidance from a consultant that has worked on several of these, they suggested you might consider that. So we put funds in there to update the complete streets policy, the pedestrian crossing policy. While that's relatively new, we've identified some opportunities to improve that. And then in addition to that, the traffic calming policy with our speed tables and flashing feedback signs. The opportunity for citizens to request streetlights and sidewalks, they'll be looking at that. But the biggest item that we funded outside of the basic safety plan is the self-propelled Leawood, and that is the bike walk master plan for our city. So that will give us, we have funding set aside in that to, that was last done I think in 2014. So we're looking to rehab that and come up with a new plan. I would look forward to incorporating something in there about electric bikes and scooters. That really wasn't a thing with the last version. And so those are these new challenges that we're dealing with today need to be considered as we develop our master plan. And so I would fully expect that to be included in that aspect. But there may be opportunity to do more yet.
Very good. And then when will we have the consultant's final report? Kind of what's the timeline for that?
So the grant, I believe, gives us roughly 2 years to complete the study and cross all the T's and submit and for final acceptance. We would like to do that much sooner than that. We're saying 12 to 18 months. 18 months is kind of like, we really need to be done in 18 months. We want to start submitting for implementation grants. We can't do that until we get this planning grant approved by the Federal Highway Administration. So 18 months is our goal. We may be able to get the safety elements identified and finish up work on like the self-propelled Leawood or the master plan. That might take a little longer. In all cases, we're looking to engage the public and have good conversation and help identify the needs and the interests and what matters. But the key safety plan really is intended to identify, look through across the city at different areas that need help. We look at crash rates, we look at speeding, we look at traffic volumes. We use data, and then they use proven methods to develop locations and recommendations for improvement.
Good, thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Scoville? Mr. Scoville, you've mentioned it a couple times. I think it's important to note that and this is actually going to sound like a statement, but it's supposed to be a question. And that is that the end result of this SS4A project that we're contemplating here is the creation of a plan, right?
Yes, sir. A plan that is the end result. This is a planning grant.
And you mentioned earlier that at the conclusion of that, then process is available in which to seek funding for implementation of what the plan calls for.
Right. If we have safety improvement projects identified, they would be eligible to potentially be funded through a implementation grant from the same funding source in the Federal Highway Administration.
But that's not to suggest that Public Works in the city of Leawood is just going to stand pat for the year and a half it takes to do the plan and then to start the implementation during that period of time. It's our our intent to continue to make safety improvements along the way. So
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, there could be some low-hanging fruit that we can tackle as soon as we identify it with our current budgets. So it really will depend on the situation, whether it's budgeted and whether the timing allows. Some potential scenarios may require more design. And this is a planning grant. It's not going to design the solutions, but it's going to identify locations and recommendations.
And I think it's just important to reemphasize the fact that this is not going to create any sort of moratorium on moving forward with safety enhancements, correct?
We'll continue to do these crosswalk studies and traffic calming studies, and we'll be back with lots of improvements as we identify them.
Thank you, Mr. Scoville. I appreciate that. Other questions for Mr. Scoville? If not, is there a motion relative to the Public Works Committee's recommendation?
I move that we accept the Public Works Committee recommendation of the selection of Burns and McDonnell and Kimley Horn for the development of the Leawood Safe Streets for All Action Plan and have staff proceed with scope and fee negotiations.
Thank you, Ms. Kane. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Guyed. Additional discussion? If not, all those in favor of accepting and adopting the Public Works Committee recommendation with respect to SS4A consultants, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, and the Public Works Committee recommendation is unanimously approved. We now come to old business, which is a matter that we've been looking at as a city for a couple of months now, and Ms. Bennett, I believe you wish to be heard on this matter.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, you'll remember last October you received a memo from the police chief asking that you consider requiring helmets on e-bikes and e-scooters and asked that that matter be referred to the Bike Walk Committee, which you did. The Bike Walk Committee had 2, maybe 3 different meetings on the topic. They initially came up with an ordinance requiring helmets for minors on the e-bikes and e-scooters, and at a later meeting decided that they would like to add to that regular scooters, regular bicycles, and skateboards and other non-electric items. So you have 2 alternatives now in your packet. The first one is the e-bikes and e-scooters, which was the original charge to the committee. And the second one was their supplemented request back to you, which was that you consider not just the e-bikes and e-scooters, but also the non-e-bikes and non-e-wheeled devices. So it is in front of you to determine whether you want one or none of these alternatives, or something totally different that you'd like us to work on.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Chief, I think you brought this to us originally back in October. Do you have comments or a perspective by the police department with respect to the proposals that are up for discussion and consideration this evening?
Brad Robbins, Police Chief. I did bring it to you in September of last year, and it was mostly to install a mechanism for our officers to address safety issues that we were seeing. And I think you've all heard the same comments, seeing these 12 and 13-year-old kids on motorized scooters with the handle, with their helmet hanging off the handlebars, zooming down the streets, and we had absolutely no recourse to stop and lecture them. We're not their parents. We had no legal rationale as long as they weren't endangering another pedestrian to stop them. So this gives us a mechanism to stop the youth, to engage them in conversation about their habits, and have a discussion with them. Our intention, there's been several comments that have come in asking if we're going to set up checkpoints and try and make this a revenue stream. We're not. It's simply to give us an opportunity to lawfully stop and detain these children and have discussions with them moving forward about safety of things like the helmets and things like this. We did set a fine amount just because to say it's only a warning. If you have perpetual violators, then you need a little bit of teeth to it, although it's certainly not our intention to start writing tickets from day one.
Does the department have a perspective on alternative A versus alternative B, basically the question of motorized or motor-assisted vehicles versus completely person-driven modes of transport? Trying to come up
I
with the
don't
right
know
figure?
statistics. Certainly a helmet, I can speak from personal experience. A helmet is always beneficial to not having a helmet, but the speeds are so much greater with the electric motorized devices. That's why we focused on that initially.
Questions for either Ms. Bennett or Chief Robbins? Yes, Mr. Pepis.
So question about, so like helmet requirements. So we're saying that they need to wear helmets. Is there any kind of specification between if they're riding like a bike, it needs to be a bike helmet, but if it's an e-scooter that's a certain level, it needs to be like a fully enclosed DOT certified helmet?
For this type of activity, there really are no national standards. And that's why you can see everything from the young children having the helmets with all the spikes on them versus the more traditional bike style helmet versus the more aerodynamic road bike helmets. There really aren't specific standards like there are for motorcycles.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pepis. Other questions? I'll start with Ms. Guyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, can you walk us through kind of how enforcement would work? For example, if you see a kiddo, like a 10-year-old without a helmet, how does it actually work to give a citation to a child to, I mean, like get their name and address, and how does the fine work? Can you maybe just give some more background information on how that actually will work in
Sure.
enforcement?
Anytime we have any kind of enforcement stop, we issue a thermal paper receipt. Whether it's for a citation or simply a warning, we don't give verbal warnings anymore. People always leave with some sort of paperwork that tells them specifically why they were stopped, where it was, and then the officer's name, who stopped them. And then that way they have a way of follow-up if there's any questions later. It's our standard procedures that anytime we have contact with youth, that we then contact their parents. Certainly, it's going to, it's not a hard, fast rule. If we stop and talk to kids at a lemonade stand, we're not going to immediately call their parents and say, hey, we talked to your kids at the lemonade. But, if we're going to issue a ticket, we're certainly going to let a parent know. If we're going to give a warning, we're probably going to try and make a phone call. We're not going to have the parents come out there, but we'll probably follow up with a phone call to them. Right now, the state law only allows us to address this with 10 years to 17 years. We can't write a citation to anybody under 9 years. So any type of violations for them, it's certainly a violation. We can't cite them at all. So for those situations, we'd be calling parents and having them respond out and explaining it to them.
And what about so you gave the example on, kind of if they have the helmet kind of hanging on their handlebars, I'm assuming it'd be like, you need to put that helmet on. What if they don't have one with them? Then what? But they still have their bicycle and they're far from home. Kind of, then what?
It becomes, you're going to have to look at a variety of circumstances. It ends up being like somebody who is driving on an expired driver's license or something like that. If you have the time and the call load is such, you can say, hey, can you have a valid driver come get you? But if calls are starting to stack up, you're more likely to say, hey, why don't you just walk that home and get your helmet?
Okay, so it's a balance, right? But
sure.
A lot of
The whole thing is like any of our
awareness.
enforcement actions is going to depend upon several different factors, but we're always going to, for this particular ordinance, we want to err toward educating the kids and getting compliance.
I really appreciate this being put forth as all of the concerns that have been brought up. So I think it's a good step in kind of educating the neighbors and the kiddos on what they should be doing for safety. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Guyette. Ms. Kane.
Chief, I was at picking up my grandkids at an elementary school, and I saw this really just tremendous bike sitting there. I was going, okay, I had to look it up to see what it was. Turns out, and it had a license plate, and it had a sticker that said Blue Valley School Permit. And when I Google searched this bike, it turns out to be $1,000 bike that is an electric bike for adults. I'm looking at it. It's an electric bike for adults that goes 28 miles an hour, and it's for off-road mountain electric bike, full suspension dirt bike, sitting in the bike stand of an elementary school. And it, like I said, they had they got some kind of license plate, and they had the blue and white Blue Valley sticker on it with a number, so they clearly knew that. So again, going back to communication here, if all of us, that child certainly couldn't be an adult. I don't know who wrote it up. Maybe it was an adult. I doubt it. But you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
It's such a gray area, right? And the thought that somebody would buy $1,000 one of these bikes for an elementary school kid and then go drive to school. You know what I mean? It just shows the depth of this problem, right? But anyway, so this is great, I think, but this only addresses the bike helmet. This doesn't address what would you do in that case if you were to see this child clearly driving something that's way above what are your ability, and then how are we communicating this to the parents and or the children?
Unfortunately, this illustrates the gray area that exists with e-bikes. By your description, it sounds like a Class 2 bike, even if there's several classes depending upon the speed potential and how powerful they are. By your description, it sounds like a Class 2 bike. Even if it's marketed to an adult, it could still be driven by a child. We don't have limitations until it's Class 3. So
and what makes it
as long
Class
as
3?
the child is wearing a helmet, if it's got a Blue Valley sticker, they have obviously a part of their program in conjunction with our SROs is we've handed out literature to parents and kids that they took home and signed to get the sticker, so the parents are aware of Blue Valley's regulations for walking on the property and for what types of bikes are allowable. It is allowable on Blue Valley property, and we're not going to be the ones to judge how the size of the child to operate the machinery. But moving forward, there are a number of issues looking further at this issue, not just with SS4A, but Duke's Law, that's before the Kansas legislature, is looking at this, and there's a number of other local pieces of legislature or ordinance proposals that are trying to, sort through all of these different classes and requirements and looking for some kind of common ground.
So in this case, the fact that it had the sticker, it had the license plate means the efforts are working, right? Or I guess to at least some degree. They knew enough to get the sticker, and like you said, even though it's marketed as an adult bike, doesn't mean so I'm learning even sitting here. So thank you for that.
But I don't know where the license plate came from, but certainly the sticker they've done what they needed to do. The license plate, I mean, it was there. But I don't know. Yeah. Again, it looked good, but you know what I mean. It looked like a license plate, but I didn't know what it was, and I didn't go that far into it. But thank you for the info. So making it a Class 3 bike, is that just a speed thing or a size thing? Or Class 3 are the most powerful bikes, and those are restricted. So everybody has to be at least 16 or older to ride those. If it's a true bike. We have had issues where basically electric motorcycles that have no kind of pedal propulsion have shown up at the schools. And, we've had our SRO has seen some of those and has summoned the child and had them call home to get a ride home with their mechanism because it's not allowed on school property.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Kane. Ms. Harrison.
Thank you. Some of my questions have been answered already, and I appreciate the discussion, and I feel like we're making you have another bike walk safety walks to school meeting here so that we can learn some of this stuff. But I have clocked these kiddos at 30 because I'm driving down Mission and I see them on the sidewalks. 2 of them. There's 2 boys around Stuart Sharp's farm that have these. And I slow down. I'm like, I just want to see how fast they go. And they're 29, 30 miles an hour on the sidewalk. And that's another question I have for you. Are we concerned about them are they allowed legally on the sidewalks when they're not pedaling at all? They haven't thought about pedaling. It's 100% motor. So
we'd have to look at the individual bikes. There are some that have been ridden, and we've received complaints and been out to address them that are, in fact, the electric motorcycles that have no pedaling whatsoever.
Oh.
There are e-bikes that allow bursts of periods of time without an electric with just the electric propulsion before you have to pedal.
Wow.
If it's a class 3 bike, which are the most powerful, they cannot be on the sidewalks, only the 1s and the 2s.
Okay, well, these
But
boys have some
that doesn't necessarily stop some of the youth from
exactly,
being
and
on
I
the
know that you
sidewalks.
can only do so much, and I assure you that my priorities are on people speeding and impaired drivers. But the safety.
We
of
have
these-
been out to address some youth in that area.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier you don't want to have to write a lot of tickets. As a former middle school teacher, you write a few dozen tickets, word's going to get around, people will get the message, and then you won't maybe have to do so many. Lisa Harrison was ticketed in 1978 for riding a bike without using either hands, and it was $2. $2 in 1978. I'm here to tell you, City of Northbrook. So it's a shame. I still carry the shame. But it was
My whole opinion has changed.
It was a
of you.
dare. It was a dare by my older brother, and I got nailed. So I did not stop at a stop sign.
Had no idea you were a criminal.
Rule breaker. But you
past.
never do it again. I learned that $2 fine. I learned. So I do think with social media, the word will get out to the parents and the kids at the schools if we catch a handful of kids breaking the rules. But I appreciate the work that went into this, and I know it's frustrating on so many levels, because why are people buying these machines for children and then not putting brain buckets, as we call them at our house, on their kiddos? But it's just frightening. But I can't imagine crashing at 30 miles an hour, a child. I mean, I just can't. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison. Yes, Ms. Rubin.
I just have a quick question. A resident asked if the police department had time and staff to enforce this ordinance. They were concerned that to them speeding was more of an important, issue, and they wanted to make sure that you had the resources to tackle this problem.
Well, as I kind of said in my opening remarks, we're not looking to go out and set up checkpoints and stuff, but certainly if we see a problem, we want to address the problem. If we were in Ms. Harrison's position and we see these youth flying paced at 30 miles an hour down a sidewalk, then certainly that's going to be time to address that issue. And this just gives us another tool to be able to detain the kids and have a conversation with them about being on scooters or being on the e-bikes. But it's not something that I would say we're going to set out every day saying, hey, you must have 4 contacts or anything like that. It's just, as we see it, we can stop and address it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rubin. Other questions for the chief or for Ms. Bennett? Well, if not, I think that we come to the discussion portion of the agenda item now, and it seems to me that there are really 3 alternatives that we all need to discuss this evening. One is what's listed here as alternative A, which is the application or the creation of a helmet law for electric assisted bikes, scooters, and similar sorts of motorized assisted vehicles. The alternative B is to extend that requirement to non-electric assisted vehicles. So all manual scooter, I guess, I don't know if you call them a manual scooter, but a foot scooter,
Non-electric.
I guess the question would be, and I really don't mean to be pejorative about this, but it would apply on its face to tricycles as well, right? I mean, do we want to extend the regulation and the requirement that far to tricycles or even vehicles that don't have pedals at all. As my grandkids' first items have been just done by their feet. Or third, do we not want to do anything at all? And so I'd open up the floor for discussion, heading hopefully towards a single motion that would go down one of those paths. Mr. Pepis.
So looking at these two and kind of what you just said there a little bit, I'm leaning more towards the alternative B, and mainly because what you alluded to, starting even at a younger age, in a way you're teaching these kids a habit. And then the habit is, no matter what they're getting on or in or skateboard, whatever it might be, tricycle, they're already getting in the habit of putting on a helmet. So then hopefully when you get to the point to where they're in high school or middle school, elementary school, whatever it might be, putting on a helmet's just kind of second nature. That's just what they grew up doing. So I mean, and what Chief was kind of saying even about, personal experience, I think the more, I don't want to say vehicles, but the more items that you can interact this with, I think the better.
Thank you, Mr. Pepis. Ms. Rubin.
So I've solicited some input from residents in Ward 3 just to kind of get their opinion about the ordinance and to let them know that we were discussing this. And I got 47 responses from residents, and some of them, responded to the entire council, and then some just responded to me. But the overwhelming majority wanted option B because they're very concerned about safety, they're concerned about head injuries, and I only had 2 people who wanted option A, and then 2 people who did not want any ordinance at all out of 47 people. So that's what, it's not scientific, it's not a scientific study, but at least I did get some feedback from residents in Ward 3 about how they felt. And then I just think it's important to look at some national standards on this. And so I looked at the American Academy of Pediatrics and to see what they recommend. And they recommend that all children wear helmets on any kind of device that has wheels. And the reason is because it prevents head injuries, brain injuries, and traumatic brain injuries. So they found that helmets significantly reduce the risk of serious injury to children. They also recommend that adults wear helmets because, again, like Matt is saying, it kind of sets the example. Sometimes you see, families riding bikes and the kids have helmets and the parents don't, and that's an issue. But we're not looking at that right now. So the American Family of Pediatrics strongly recommends that all children and adolescents wear a properly fitting helmet to reduce the risk of head and brain injuries. And their studies have shown that helmets reduce the risk of head injury by 85%, reduce the risk of brain injury by 88%, and reduce the risk of severe brain injury by 75%. So another thing I think we don't think about so much is the impact on first responders when there is an accident and a child has a brain injury, and how that impacts the first responder. They are also traumatized by seeing a child be injured, and it could be a very severe injury, it could be a fatality. So I think that's, to me, I'm looking at it from an overall safety perspective and not just the parent's right to wear a helmet or not. I think we need to look at this as a community and to try to keep everybody as safe as possible. So I know I have a son who's 17. As he was a preteen, he rode a scooter, electric scooter, and he probably didn't always wear his helmet. And it would have been nice for me to have the backing of the city, saying there's an ordinance. You could be stopped by police. You have to wear the helmet. So I just think we need to come together as a community and to, make our kids as safe as possible. So I'm supporting option B.
Thank you, Ms. Rubin. Ms. Larson?
Daring to be different. I respect everyone's opinion, and I especially appreciate the residents that took the time to write in. I'm all in on option A. I think it's a great idea. Safety first. I do take pause with option B, though. I feel like we would be out of step with the other municipalities that surround us. And I feel as though that is a little bit of a bridge too far and more of a parental responsibility in my mind, that non-electric bikes and scooters and the like don't pose the same level of risk as the electric devices do. And I just want to be careful that we don't overstep our authority and go too far with the ordinance. I just feel like over-regulation can sometimes be counterproductive to the behavior that you're trying to encourage, and an education and more of a push that way to encourage people to comply with the safer alternatives. Of course, I think kids should be wearing helmets, whether it's a non-electric or an electric device. But in my mind, there is a big difference between the two. And more ordinances doesn't always correlate with more safety. We have to find a balance there. And the best example I can find is what we've talked about in Public Works, that sometimes when you have an overly restrictive speed limit on a street, that the compliance with that speed limit goes out the window when it's overly restrictive. And I just think we need to stay in step with our fellow municipalities. And while encouraging helmets, option B is a little bit too far for me. I'm all in on option A, however.
Thank you. Mr. Sunkel, I see your hands up. I hope I haven't ignored you for too long.
Yes, no, you haven't. I actually was going to say basically the same thing as Mr. Peppas and Ms. Rubin. I think it does get kids in the habit. Every time they're on a wheeled vehicle, they put a helmet on. And my daughter straps herself into her seatbelt. She got that habit much quicker than I did as an adult adopting seatbelt habits. So I think when you instill this early, it's going to be commonplace. And hopefully when they become adults, even though the state of Kansas doesn't require helmets for motorcycles, hopefully they will wear a helmet when they're riding a motorcycle. So I'm all in on option B as well.
Thank you, Mr. Sunkel. Ms. Guyette.
I am leaning more towards option A. I tend to agree more with Ms. Larson on this. There is a balance here of being overstepping our bounds as a city governing body to infringing on what should be parental and family enforcement on things like this. I also believe that the reason this is before us is because of the heightened risk and danger that these newer electric type e-bikes and other recreational things are posing. I don't know that this would have necessarily come before us any other way. So I am leaning more towards option A.
Thank you, Ms. Guyette. Dr. Castor, I
Yes.
see a hand moving.
Kind of moving, yeah. So I definitely, support the goal of reducing injuries and protecting kids, but I also am favoring option A more for as I kind of read the ordinance for option B, one of the items that would require that is a, let's see, what was that? Essentially, it was a motorized wheelchair. And personally, I'm thinking a motorized wheelchair isn't going very fast, and they're protected, and to require a child in a motorized wheelchair to wear a helmet when the risk is pretty low, most likely. And to the mayor's earlier point about a child in a tricycle who's at a park and, you know, riding on that, to require them to wear one just seemed, at least in my view, perhaps a little bit too stringent. And so again, I would be more supportive of option A at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Castor. I'll go with Ms. Kane.
Thank you. I would agree with that. As I read the information that Chief Robbins gave us, I don't see any city that, unless I'm reading this wrong, that is legislating anything that isn't motorized. And only one, Shawnee, if I'm reading again, it's a little bit hard to understand some of this, but Shawnee was the one that talks about motorized skateboards, scooters, and unicycles, but nonetheless, they're motorized. So I tend to think that this is a big, strong, big, smart step for us. I don't know that we should, doesn't preclude us from doing it in the future, but I think right now, we talk about it all the time, but let's find a balance. Let's find some kind of, sometimes inadvertently you shoot yourself in the foot by going too far too fast. So I would support option A. Option B, as it's written, is super, like you said, anything with wheels, including wheelchair. I didn't read that or understand that or even think of that, but there you go. Or a tricycle for that matter either. But yeah, if you read it, that's what it says. So I think that, and then to the comment earlier about what does our staff have the time to do and the ability to do? And so again, to not over-regulate at this point in time, they can't possibly keep up or do it. You know what I mean? It's just it could be almost impossible to, if the category is so broad, to even make it meaningful. So I think that this is a great first step. We are absolutely responding to the issue that's before us, and I would be supportive of Ordinance A. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kane. Ms. Harrison.
Thank you. All the conversation up here generates more questions that I didn't have as I was looking at my packet last night. Chief, what about golf carts? Because they're zipping through my neighborhood and the kids are not wearing seatbelts, or certainly would never have helmets on a golf cart being driven by parent to
Golf carts in and of themselves are illegal.
So
it doesn't matter if the children are helmeted or not. A low-powered vehicle, which is the upscale golf carts with the bumpers and seat belts, they are a licensed vehicle like a car and would require seat belts or passenger restraint for juveniles.
Okay, so let's pretend that all the ones that I see zipping through my neighborhood are licensed, because they might be. I did get behind one that had turn signals. That was impressive. But that is a motorized vehicle zipping along easily at 25 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour, and those
They would require passenger restraint devices just like a car.
So hopefully they're wearing seatbelts, so they wouldn't need helmets. Okay. All right, thank you. Boy, I hadn't thought about the wheelchairs. Now that just seems a little...
Mayor, I'm going to clarify. I don't think wheelchair is in here. I think you may be looking at the electric
personal assistive mobility device.
It's at 2 tandem wheels. It's like a Segway. So the definition of that in the STO it was alarming to me when I first read it as well, because I thought that would be something that would assist a disabled person like a wheelchair, but it is not. It's like a Segway. Or I think there's other like Segways without handles. I forget what they're called. Things like that.
Yeah, this is an unusual name. A mobility device. I don't think of a Segway.
Something only a lawyer could come up with. Right?
That's the Kansas Standard Traffic Ordinance.
Right. Well, thank you for explaining it that way.
And Ms. Bennett, again, hopefully I'm not going too far, asking you too much here, but in drafting this, would the golf cart that Councilmember Harrison talked about, would it be included within the scope of this? Would not.
No. I'm also going to note, because I don't think I emphasized this earlier, this is just on rights-of-way, trails, sidewalks, public property. It's not you're in your driveway. It's not that. It's you're out on your way somewhere.
Other additional discussion? Well, if not, is there a motion to be had one direction or the other?
I would like to make a motion that we, based on what I was hearing, consider adopting alternative A. At this time, it seemed like that had more legs under it from what I was counting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Guyette. So we have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance that's described in alternative A. Is there additional discussion of the motion or the issue? If not, because this is an amendment to our city ordinance, our city code requires a roll call vote. If there's no more discussion, I would ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pepis?
Nay.
Councilmember Rubin?
Nay.
Councilmember Larson?
Aye. Yes.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Councilmember Guyed?
Aye.
Councilmember Castor?
Aye.
Councilmember Kane?
Aye.
Councilmember Harrison?
Aye.
Councilmember Sunkel?
Nay.
Okay, I see 5 votes in favor and 3 votes against, and therefore the ordinance amending Chapter 14, Article 2 of the Code of the City of Leawood that's described in Alternative A in our packets is adopted and approved. I have thank you all for, Ms. Bennett, thank you for your work in working through these alternatives and making it better and more able for us to have a good discussion. Chief, thank you for you and your staff for bringing this to our attention and the work that we're doing forward. And thank you in advance for your work and your department's work in both enforcing, but more so in educating our public about our concern for public safety, especially with the use of helmets. I have no new business this evening. I believe that you can see the upcoming meetings. I had given you all fair warning that this spring would be a busy time, and we see, I think, a couple of joint work sessions that I'm really looking forward to on February 16th and March 2nd. I think that we all were very interested in the work that our consultant did in Rooted and Reaching with respect to market studies along what activity we may see along 135th Street. And so I think that's going to be a very interesting discussion. Note that we're starting at 5:30. Hopefully that will give us adequate time to have a very full and fulsome discussion with the consultant. The idea is for the consultant to provide us with some input, but I'm encouraging Ms. Hurley to make it clear to the consultant that she should be prepared for lots of questions from us. So I hope that you all will come with those questions. And then we'll move on March 2nd to a joint work session with the Planning Commission and the governing body to discuss the first draft, I guess, of the Leawood Comprehensive Plan, which is exciting that it's moved this quickly. Frankly, I'm pleasantly surprised that it's moved this quickly, but great work by our planning department and by our consultant, as well as the input that we've received from everybody in the city. And we will have a number of, I think while in my absence, Stephen circulated some dates. We're all a very busy group, and I think out of all those dates, there was one that worked for everybody. So nobody changed your vote from what you gave Stephen last week, because it's the one date that works there.
Get us that date soon.
Is there any other business to come before the governing body this evening? Very much appreciate your work this evening, and if not, we will stand adjourned. Thank you. Good night.